Hello, everyone. Glad to see so many of you have joined us today. My name is Adam Winterton. I'm Stone Security's Global Technology Center Manager. I get to play with the tech here at the GTC. If you come and visit, I'll give you a demo of the space and we'll look at any technology that we have that might be of interest to you. Today, we're going to look at some Milestone features and programming options. Before we do, just a couple housekeeping items. First, thank you for coming. We absolutely love having you. If you want to keep tabs on Stone events and what's coming up for us this year, one place to do that is our website, stonesecurity.net. And as well as our website, another great place to look for content is on our YouTube channel. So look us up there on YouTube. And if there's anything in the video today that you want to go back and reference, check on later, we'll have that video posted. Usually we try to target around a week after the event. So a week from today, we should have that up, be able to review that, watch it, and refresh your memory on anything that you saw. And links to both of those are in the chat. So definitely on the YouTube side, follow and subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that you'll be notified when we do post new content. We're really trying to get some new stuff out there this year. This will be up. I have another video that I started working on a couple days ago where I walk through the installation process of a Milestone 2025 R1 installation. And so if you are not super familiar with installing Milestone, that'll be a great resource. And we'll have that one up here soon as well. And then we've got some other content planned throughout the year that we hope to show off and hope it will be valuable and useful to you. For those attending today, we do have lunch credits, lunch vouchers coming to you again via email after the session has been completed. So keep an eye out for that in your email. You've got 48 hours to use those once you get it. And so hopefully you can enjoy a little bit of a tasty treat on us, just as a way of saying thank you for joining. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I wanted to do was a follow-up from one of our previous videos. We spent an entire session looking at Access Object Analytics and how they interact with Milestone. And in that video, we actually ran into some challenges in our demonstration. And so we dug into that, figured out what was going on and why things weren't working or looking like what we expected. And so to explain this, probably the easiest thing to do is if I start a new rule, and we're going to look at the event list as we see it in Milestone. And while it's pulling up this event list, this is the list of events that are reported by the camera into Milestone. And so when you add a device into Milestone, Milestone queries that device and says, what can you do? What options do you have? What events do you have? What capabilities, and so on. And so what we get in this list is what is reported by the camera. I'll expand it out here so we can see a larger view. And if I scroll down to Camera Application Platform, Object Analytics, Device 1, Scenario 1, there's this whole section where we have Object Analytics, Device 1, Scenario, whatever. What we used to see was more typical to what we have up here at the top of this list, where we would see Device 1, Scenario 1 falling, Device 1, Scenario 1 rising. Okay, and then we move on. Device 1, Scenario 2, rising and falling. Device 1, Scenario 3, rising and falling, and so on. So if I had one camera that had 6 scenarios on it, then I would see Scenario 1 through 6 rising and falling. What changed is what we now see in the rest of this list. So the way that it was before, and I'll tell you, this all happened with a firmware update on the cameras. What I haven't been able to figure out is pin down exactly which firmware update it changed in. But I'm still working on trying to get that information. But what it was before is these events were event categories, not specific individual events tied to that specific camera, that scenario. And so with that shift from a category to what they have now moved to is a individual specific event, now we have these scenario and then some random number, scenario, some random number, and so on. So this can both have benefits and also some challenges. One of the challenges, and we're working to resolve this with Access to see if we can provide them some feedback to say, hey, this new way of functioning this new way of handling these is great, but we also need the old way back. So we'll see how those conversations continue to go. But with the category, we would be able to say, doesn't really matter which camera my device one, scenario one is happening on. We would say, I want my device one, scenario one. We would say, okay. And then we would say, okay, which device do we want to pair that category, that event category to? So we could then say, I want this from all of my exterior cameras. Let's say every one of my exterior cameras is running a device one, scenario one. We could select every camera. And any device one, scenario one that happened on any camera from that selection would trigger the event. And then as we progress through the rest of the event actions, we would be able to say things like, for example, start recording on device. Okay, well, which device? Well, the device on which the event occurred. Use the triggering device. And if it came in on the front intercom, then it would use the metadata from that device to then pass through the rest of the rule. The problem now is that we don't have those category events. And so now everything is tied to a specific AOA scenario. So if I have 5 cameras, each of those cameras has 2 scenarios, and I want to do a rule that says on scenario 1 from any of these 5 cameras, I have to now create a rule for camera 1, a rule for camera 2, a rule for camera 3, a rule for camera 4, and so on. And then I have to do that the same if I want to leverage scenario 2 on each of those cameras. So the shift moved from treating the event type, treating the event as a category to treating the event as an individual specific tied to a single device event. And so the way, and like, for example, another way to think about it is a lot of cameras have a tampering, some kind of a tampering event, right? Well, never before have we had tampering 1,251, tampering to, whatever. The tampering is the category, and then we scope our rule to the devices that we want to, to specify within that. So it's a little bit of a shift. Hopefully we can get some appropriate feedback to the right people and work towards a shift or resolution on this again, because this does create, at least on our perspective, a lot more programming on the back end as opposed to before where we could leverage one rule to do multiple things. So there's just a little bit of update on that. That's why things weren't working as expected when we tried to show you this last time. That firmware change, it's going to depend on the track, but I think it was somewhere right around the shift of 11 to 12 OS, but I'm not exactly positive on that. Still trying to find that exact firmware that kicked that off. Because one option would be to roll camera firmware back to pre that event so that those devices still come as categories. As soon as I can figure that out, we will maybe include that in a newsletter or in an email notification or blast or something. Or at the very least, our support team will be aware and you'll be able to ask them and say, hey, which firmware do I need to go back to so that this doesn't work like this? So there's a little update on that and where things are at. All right, so let's now kind of shift gears and let's look at the new features in 2025 R1. So one thing I'm going to show you here really quick is, let me grab, I have a link here for it. And let me put this link in the chat as well. Milestone has a nice website where you can go and you can say, okay, which edition or version of Milestone am I on? I'm on corporate. Okay, what release am I currently on? I previously was on 2024 R2. You might put in 23 R1 or whatever it is. So I'll say 2024 R2. This will also tell us what changed from that specific version. And now as I scroll down, it gives us the list of features on what changed. So we got 4 ease of use features, 1 performance and scalability feature, and 1 integration feature. And then as we expand out this list, I'll make it a little bigger so it's easier to read through the Teams meeting. As I expand out this list, we can see what those features are. So between 2024 R2, which was the last release of 2024, and the current release of 2025 R1, here's what we got. We didn't. Milestone added Greek language support in all of the smart clients, in all of the XProtect clients. In the mobile client, we now can show a notification badge on the alarms tab. And we'll look at this in a little bit more detail when we get to the mobile applications. But before, if you had the, particularly on iOS, if you had the XProtect Mobile open and you were on the alarms tab watching for alarms, you wouldn't see new alarms come in until you drag down and refresh. But now there's a banner there that will pop up and show you that new alarm. On the mobile client for Android, we now have a new layout and new navigation. So basically the UI is more similar to what we see in iOS, with all of the navigation moving from the top to the bottom. And we'll see what that looks like as well. Smart client extensions to combined media player format. So they have added options. Starting 2024, it might have been release 1. We got the ability to use a combined media player format. So instead of doing individual video files for every camera that we included in the export, it had the ability to spit out one video file that was all of the cameras back to back, built into one file. What we have now is the adaptive view in that, as well as the ability to add in timestamps and camera names into those views. So let's shift to look at that right now, and then we'll come back to the rest of the list and we'll work through the rest as we go. So I'm going to pull up my my smart client. Going to go to a view of cameras, and we'll use this as an example. Let's say we've got a collection of boxes here, and it's where did those boxes come from? Who put them there? Who left them there? Kind of normal scenario. That'll reveal to us a person, and then we can track that person as well. So we'll do this kind of quick so that we don't have this huge export that we have to wait, forever for it to come. Since it is a media player format, it does take a little extra time. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll backwards until I see those boxes up here. I know they were this morning some point. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here we've got some boxes appearing. Let me go back a little bit further. We'll make this camera big, and we're going to start a quick export just from right here. So I'm going to put on my time selection brackets, and I'm going to adjust my time selection brackets. Let's say we grab this. We have our checkbox selected there. Let's go back out to all the cameras. So we've got start time and end time. We have our checkbox. I'm going to go to export, add to export list. All right. Now we're going to grab another camera, for example. Let's say we want to use, slide over. We're using that one. My PTZ got shifted a little bit. We'll use this camera as well. So we'll check the box on that. We'll uncheck this one so that we can basically say, these are the specific cameras from time to time, start to end that we want to use. Let's build in those. So we'll grab him maybe on this camera once he hits the evolved weapons detection lanes. And same thing. Let me zoom in on that timeline a little bit. So we'll get them, have it stop there. So we'll go export, add to export list. Okay. Let's also grab, we could grab another camera from, let's do location, showroom, and we'll do one more and then we'll call that good. So what would show, there's one here for the south. Let's see, we want the southeast corner. Yes, perfect. Okay. So we'll say this camera now, get rid of that other one. And we're going to grab, let's go back in that first segment, grab those first couple. So we'll go here. Okay. We'll get that. He's out of camera view there. So we will export, add to export list. And then we'll come and grab the next section. And then we'll truncate the front of it to probably right there. Okay, and we'll do export, add to export list. So now if I go to my export screen, we have a collection of 4 clips. We can review those. We can adjust them if needed. So here we're watching them from the very beginning, coming all the way out, setting the boxes down, and then going back. We cut out, but going halfway back. We've got this one just here on the near side of the evolve lanes. And then we'll grab 2 clips from this guy as we see those being carried out. Okay, so we have our export. Now we can do our typical XProtect format, and that's going to be, it's going to look just like our normal smart client views where we've got multiple cameras, they're time synced, we've got a single timeline. It's going to look almost exactly like this. We also have the media player format in individual files. This is what we have typically had over time, where you can you do the export, but you'll get a file for each camera depending on how long the clips are. If they exceed the file size limits of those codecs, then you might have multiple files. And so now we also have the combined files. So I'm going to uncheck the individual files. We'll look at the combined files. And then down here on export settings, we're going to see what our settings and options are. So we'll come over to the combined file section. We're using an H.264 codec. We can say video only, video and audio. We're going to say video only. Compression quality, so we can select the compression level of our video. There's a little context help here that if you mouse over, you'll get the description of what that is. Compression quality sets the target quality for the encoder to use. Higher quality will result in a bigger file size that is closest to the original quality. Lower quality will likewise result in a smaller file size with less detail. It's set as medium by the default. That can be changed though in your smart client profiles, and then forced, or you can hide that option altogether for different users. I'm going to just say medium, just for time constraints. We don't want to have to wait for that export for a while. Resolution. Most of these are 1080. Some of them are higher resolution cameras. So we'll say the 4K, and then we'll say 30 frames per second default. You could drop it down to 15 or wherever you want that to be. And then there is an advanced settings section where we can say, okay, what format do we want this in? Now we do have our typical MP4, which will require, any of these are going to require transcoding because we're modifying multiple videos into a single file. But we can do MKV format. That's going to be your smaller file size between the two. And then MP4 is going to be maybe your more versatile, Mac friendly or whatever friendly. But both are pretty compatible across the board. But the MP4 is going to have a larger file size. The MKV will be a smaller file size. So I like the MKV one. Layout, we can do single camera view, which is described as displays one sequence at a time following the playback order you selected in the export list. So however we have it laid out here in the export list is how it will show in our single file. So we'll have one camera cutting to another camera, cutting to another camera. This Adaptive view, though, is what we're mainly focused on. And it's pretty slick. Resolution settings prevent resolution upscaling. So we're not going to try, if we have less than 4K video or whatever resolution we selected, we're not going to try to upscale that. Maybe so we don't have to wait so long for the export to see the results. We'll just do full HD. So we're not going to try and upscale less than 1080p video to 1080. We're just going to handle it at its lower resolution. You can add padding. It is a grayed out option. I'm not entirely sure why. It might be, maybe we have to do MP4 to add padding, or maybe that's part of the single. Yeah, so single camera view, we can add padding, which is probably going to add a couple seconds before and after the selected clips. Or maybe it just adds in some blank. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't played with it, but if we mouse over it, let's find out. We have a context tool here. Come on, mouse over. Combining video sequences from different cameras into one file can change the resolution during playback. Some media players do not support that. This option will add padding around the video to ensure that the resolution is the same for the entire video. Okay, so what that's saying is if we have a camera that's 720, a camera that's 1080, and we do the single camera view, the video is actually going to change. So our single file video output is going to change from 1080 to 720 to 1080. It's going to follow and track the resolution of the cameras that are selected. So add padding is going to basically fill black space around the lower resolution frames so that everything exports at the one resolution. We don't have that option though on a adaptive view. And we'll see why here once we export that. And then we have the options here, even on the MKV. This surprised me a little bit. Even on the MKV format, we have the options to include timestamps and include the camera names. So we're going to have both of those checked. We will close our export settings. We will start our export, and we're going to give it a name, SNS 2025-04 test export of adaptive view with new settings. Okay, and we specify our destination, and I can say export. Oh, I did not want to do password. Let's hit cancel. Turn off the XProtect format. That's where that password prompt came from. Yeah, we'll just leave it as we'll do this. Test of adaptive view. All right, export. There we go. So our export is underway. It is combining the files. Okay, and there, now we have it. It is done. So if I forget where I saved it to, which frequently happens anytime I do an export, there's an export details link here. I can click that. That's going to tell me the export location, as well as any details about the success of the export or whatever else it might be. So I can go to export location. I can click on that, and it's going to pop up a window telling me, or taking me directly to now my export location. Let me shrink that down. Really quick before I close this out as well, there is a restore export list. So if you need to export this again, maybe with some different settings, you wanted it packaged separately or differently, or maybe you wanted to add some video to it, there is a restore export list, which when I click is going to now take those clips again, put them back into my export list, and now I can continue to modify or tweak or change the export types or whatever I need without having to go back in and manually re-add all of those elements. So that's a really nice thing to have now. All right, let's look at what this video file is. So media player format, and we have one MKV file, test of adaptive view, and let's play it. And so here we have two views. I'll pause it here so we can see. We have two camera views side by side. We have the camera names there as well. We have the, let me full screen so we can see it. We have the date and timestamps burned in at the top. And we hit play. And this is automatically by itself changing and adapting that view to the cameras and those sequences that we selected. So now we have the two cameras side by side. We go back to the one. We change to this one. And that was all of our export. So I think the main thing that they added there was the ability to burn in the timestamps as well as the camera names, which definitely seems helpful and important for very obvious reasons. If something did need to go to court or to trial, or even just to know, like, okay, well, where is this? What camera was this? And we can go back and look at it later in our system without having to play, guess the camera. And then we've got the timestamp in there, so that's good too. So that is the new expanded combined media player format options. So let's come back to our new features. Scrolling down more, so we have performance and scalability enhancements. It's one feature. Let's expand that out. And it is titled XProtect LPR Vehicle Analytics. XProtect LPR now has added enhanced vehicle analytics. This goes beyond simple license plate recognition with added features such as vehicle class, vehicle color, vehicle make and model, and vehicle angle to further assist law enforcement and security personnel to quickly and easily locate and identify vehicles of interest. There is a question in the chat asking, what software version are these features on? So these are all new features that are in the current release of 2025 R1. And what we're doing in this comparison is we're comparing 2024 R2 to the current release of 2025 R1 to see what was changed or added to that. All right, and so we'll look at what this is in just a moment. Before we jump away from this page, though, let's go down to the next one, integration. This is not so much a new feature, more of an expansion of a rolling down of an existing feature to additional tiers as well. So this is Arculys plugin support for XProtect Corporate, XProtect Expert, and XProtect Professional Plus. This was traditionally only available in XProtect Corporate, and they have now extended that down to Expert and Professional Plus. So if you have an Expert system or a Professional Plus system, and you also have cameras in Arculys, there is an integration between Arculys and Milestone where you can pull your Arculys cameras into Milestone and have them be viewable inside Milestone. All right, let's jump back to the XProtect LPR. Minimize our web page here. We're going to go to LPR. All right, so this camera angle is a little on the tighter end, and so we don't see quite as many camera details, and it's a little on the dark side right now. But you can see what we're adding is some additional information. So ignore for a moment what's down here in the bottom right, and let's look at the columns in our list. So we have registration number, country. These are the plate country modules that we're using, the time, the LPR camera that picked up that detection. Okay, was this plate was this plate on any match list, the plate style, and here's where we get into new information. So we have now the LPR software itself is attempting to make a determination on what is the make of this vehicle, what is the model of this vehicle, what is the classification, is it a car, van, bus, truck, what is the color, and which side of the vehicle are we looking at? So we have that's the angular reference that we saw in the description of the new feature. Now, given that this is kind of a darker camera scene than what would be ideal for an LPR setup, and it's a little tighter, we're probably not going to get super great results. And we can see that in that it thought this was a mini, model unknown, classification as a van, and it's gray. I mean, it is kind of gray. This camera's color saturation is turned down so that we get some better clarity in the LPR in the dark areas. And then we're looking at the rear. Well, this is the front of the vehicle, not the rear. Here's another one. It says white. We're looking at the front. Thinks it's a Honda. Obviously, it says Bronco across the front. So being that this is a new feature, it's now enabled since I upgraded from my previous version to 2025 R1. There's probably some LPR adjustments and dialing in that I need to do to retrain it a little bit to allow for these different features to be a little more accurate. So we will dig into LPR in probably a lot more detail in a future video. That's a topic that comes up a lot. And we've spent a little bit of time kind of floating around it, but certainly something we need to cover a little more. Now you'll notice, let's go back down to the bottom right. So we have a make, it thinks it's a Land Rover. It's a closer match to the Bronco. Model unknown, type van, color black, and we're looking at the front. So we have more correct information here. What's over on the right side of this, where you have, make, Ford, model, Bronco, year 2024, color white, owner Adam. This is information that I created manually as part of the match list, and I'll show you what that is. And so we go to match lists, and we pick any one of these. So you can add custom fields, make, model, year, color, owner. These are fields that I created pre this release where Milestone is trying to make that determination. So we could rename these to be manual make, manual model, manual year, or if we ever wanted to differentiate that in some way. We have owner. We can put owner names, first and last name, or whatever in there. So this is information that I have manually entered in to Milestone as part of the watch list. And so that's what we see here on this right side of our results. This is the manual information that came from the match list. On the left-hand side is the new feature classifications that the LPR software is trying to make. So we'll look at this more when we get some more details, some little better LPR setup. Hopefully I can get one out on a road nearby here soon and get some good views with a lot more data to look at. And then we'll see some more accurate information. All right. If you ever want to compare, you're like, okay, well, I'm on version, let's pick a different version. Let's say you're still on 2022 R2. But let's say you want to know, okay, what has been added since then? So again, this tool is something that you can use to say, okay, what's new to Milestone between the current version and what I'm on right now? And we have quite a long list that happened, a lot of changes that happened between, what did we pick, 2022 R2 and 2025 R1. So the link to this site is in the chat. If you want to use that, check out the differences between your own system and the current version. Take a look. If there's features there that are like, oh man, that would be really nice, really handy, we would love to help you update. And that's something that our support team can provide as a service. We can assist you in it. You can do it yourself. And if there's an issue, you can call us or we can do it for you, the whole spectrum. Just depends on how you want that to happen. Support@stonesecurity.net is the best way to get a hold of our support team. And then we can get that scheduled. We can talk through what the process is, what downtime you could expect. Will the hardware you're using work for the new version? Whatever we need to do. Okay, so that's a great tool. All right, so that is the 2025 R1 release. We're excited to see what might come in the 2025 R2 release. No information on that yet, so unfortunately I can't give you any kind of a sneak peek or anything. Okay. So we're going to shift, and now we're going to start talking about some of our mobile clients. You'll see that I have here. So here is a iPad, and here is a Android phone. This is specifically, this is a Pixel 9. And we're going to look at the different clients, some of the functions that are there, some of the features that are there. we saw an updated layout that's new as part of the 2025 R1. So we'll see what that is. So let's go ahead and dig in. So if we jump to XProtect Mobile on my phone, okay, we'll select our site. And now we have the views. All right. Before we get into this, I do want to, some of you may be asking, hey, I don't have mobile. What is that? I've never heard of it. This is Milestone Mobile is a software component that can be added to any of the milestones. So it's available on Expert, Professional Plus, Corporate, any of them. And it's been around for a long time. It's had a lot of feature enhancements and usability enhancements over time. So older versions are going to be slightly different from what we look at today. Depending on your server hardware and how many users are going to be using Milestone Mobile, we can either leverage existing hardware to run that software component, or we can purpose build hardware to run that software component. So this can be used both on-prem. So if I'm in my facility connected to my building Wi-Fi, my phone's connected to the Wi-Fi, I can now leverage that Wi-Fi to give me this connection into my camera system, and we can start viewing cameras from there. So we'll pull up that same lobby view we were looking at earlier. Okay. I can also do this with if I'm not at my site. So if I'm off of network. Now, Milestone is not going to create that network traffic tunnel for you. They leave that up to you to determine, or for your network team to determine what the best way to do that is. So if you want to make this available when outside of your network, so say you're at home or you run out to the store or somewhere else, you're not on your company Wi-Fi, you're not on your company network in any way, there's two things you can do. You have two options. Option number one, and this is the preferred option, is to leverage a VPN client. So you would connect your device all the way back to your company network with a VPN connection. That is the preferred solution. It is the most secure way. And IT teams are already generally familiar with that process and have that set up. You know, it's the same thing for if you want to work from home for the day, but you need to join your laptop to the domain, you join your laptop to the VPN in order to get access to on-site resources that you normally wouldn't have access to. The other way of doing that, which is it still works, it's still doable, but it is less secure, is to create a port forward at your network firewall such that any external traffic coming into my company network hits the firewall. The firewall says, hey, this is port 8081. We want to allow that traffic through. We're going to now pass that traffic over to the software, or over to the hardware running our XProtect Mobile software components. That always raises red flags with IT teams, with your security teams, because, hey, we're creating holes in our network firewall. It's not likely, but it is possible that those ports could be leveraged for other not great purposes. So VPNs are the way to do that. Both of these devices right now are on my corporate Wi-Fi here at my office. And so just wanted to point that out. XProtect Mobile is not necessarily part of a default Milestone installation, but it is an option or a feature that can be turned on. Okay, both can leverage, once connected, both devices can leverage biometrics to authenticate in past that point. We have demo views, locations, and we'll do lobby. So here's the two side by side. We have iOS and we have Android. On any device that is a tablet, so even on an Android tablet, we have a button up in the top right, which is going to change our grid view from a 2x2 to a 3x3. I believe this is a new feature. If not 25R1, it was probably 24R2. It's relatively new. We haven't had the option or the ability to change the grid size in mobile up until now. For any device classified as a phone, just meaning smaller screen, smaller real estate, we don't have those options to change the layout. But you can change from portrait to a landscape view, drag that over, and it's just going to fit in however many cameras it can across that view. So we get typically a 2 wide here. If we could lay it down, we get a 3 wide and they're a little bit bigger. Any camera that we click on, we're going to get in live mode full screen. In the bottom left, we have a playback icon, so I can click that. And now we have our play forwards, play backwards. I can pinch to zoom on my timeline, and we can make that timeline expand to be more zoomed in. I can click and drag, and I can hit play, and we can review that video as we go. We have still also play forwards buttons, play backwards buttons. We can step through frame by frame. Let me come here. We can zoom that camera view to an area, and playing forward frame by frame, playing backwards frame by frame. We can skip our sequences from one sequence to the next. Very similar to the smart client and how the smart client functions. Let's come back here. I can gesture, swipe left, swipe right to change from one camera to the next. And then in playback, we have that play fast or slow capabilities as well. Let me find a sequence here that's got somebody. Okay, so there I am standing, driving the RC car, and we can change this. We can click our X1 button, that gives us a pop-up, and we can change that to X8, and we can play that faster. Now we're gonna lose frames and we're skipping frames, but we're gonna cover the gist of it a lot quicker. We also have features to create an investigation. We can also grab snapshots. So for example, if I hit this button, this little picture icon with the plus up in the top right, that's going to grab a snapshot and save it to my photos on my device. I have this little history playback button up here. So it's a box, it's 2 boxes laid over each other with a play icon. So this is going to give me my sequences. So rather than scroll through here, okay, we can quickly hit our history button. We can scroll through and be like, okay, here's, something from 8:45 this morning. I can click that and it's going to jump us to that time in the timeline. We have this investigation button. So a investigation inside of Milestone Mobile, it's kind of like an export, but it's a little bit different. And the functionality is the same between the iOS and the Android. But an investigation is not going to pull the video out of your system and save it on your device. An investigation is going to basically, it will pull the video out of your system and it puts it on wherever your mobile server is running. So if your mobile server is running on your management service or on a recording server, it's going to pull that video out of Milestone and put it in a folder on that device. If you are doing this a lot, your drives could fill up because that's space not accounted for in the recording solution design or whatever it may be. But then it can be set to expire after a certain amount of time. You could just turn off the investigations features altogether so that nobody can use that. But this doesn't get it to your device. This basically just pulls it out of the Milestone system partially so that it's now on a folder that you specify. And you can point it to another, you could put it on a network share probably if you wanted to. We'll look at those settings here once we jump into the management client and start looking at mobile options there. We have another button up across the top. It's going to be the live view pop-up. So if I click it, we get a pop-up of the live view side by side, picture in picture with the playback. So we can see what happened on our timeline at where we're looking, and we can see what's happening now on both. If you're on a slower network connection, it would be advantageous to turn that off so that you're using less bandwidth as you're reviewing video. It'll make it faster. Okay, very similar functionality in the iOS. So we have any camera that we select, we can take full screen. We have we can pinch and zoom. We can pan around inside that camera view. We have a playback icon down in the bottom left. I can click that playback icon. We have our timeline, that same thing I can pinch and zoom on. We can hit play to roll it back to the last recorded video, or play backwards to roll it back to the last recorded video. And there we have the video, same thing. So our timeline being zoomable lets us kind of scroll through that video a little bit and see what we're looking at specifically. Here's our live view pop-up. We can turn that on or off. We still have that same investigation capabilities. And we have the history view. And then we have our snapshot. Save to photo library. One thing you can't do in Milestone Mobile is playback multiple cameras simultaneously. Playback is only going to be tied to one device at a time. But you can view live simultaneously. Now, one thing to know, the default setting for viewing multiple cameras live is going to be viewing them at just the keyframes. So if you're running 15 frames per second, these are kind of generic numbers, but if you're running at 15 frames per second, you're going to get about 1 frame per second of keyframes, and then the other 14 frames are filler frames or P frames. The P frames don't contain the entire image. They just contain the changes since the last frame, and so on. So the keyframes, those are the full frames. We can save a lot of compute capabilities on the device when we're viewing multiple cameras at a time. It only has to grab that keyframe from each and every camera, and so we get about a 1 frame per second refresh rate on that. If we have a view that has a lot of cameras, let me pick one here. So here's the showroom. 36 cameras in this layout. And one thing to point out, this is using the same view group structure that we have in the Smart Client. Okay. So where we have a lot of cameras, as we scroll, the cameras that are appearing in the scene are going to start streaming to our device. And the cameras that are disappearing from the screen are going to stop streaming. So we're not going to be streaming continuously everything to our device, only the cameras that are on the screen at that time. Up in the top right corner next to the grid size icon, there is a little lightning bolt. This is actions. So this is a list of actions that are tied to cameras inside of our view. If there aren't any, it's going to give you this pop-up to say, do you want to see a list of all actions in the system? You can say yes or no. If you say yes, here's a bunch of manual events that I have created that I can fire off from here. If we continue to move through it, so there is an all cameras view. So if you don't want to, dig through the views, which view was it? You could just have all your cameras that you can scroll through and view there. Or you can do a search and you can search for the specific camera that you want. We could say panoramic would be the camera on the rear. So it's a good way to kind of jump around and find those quickly. There is a search history as well. So if you are frequently jumping to something, then you don't have to type it every time. Moving across the bottom, we have video push. We have this on both devices. We're going to come back to this. We have alarms. We'll touch on alarms in just a little bit more as well in a few moments. And then we have, again, so here's investigations under the more. We don't have any investigations saved. We would see the list here. We'd be able to play back the video there from start to end. We could add to or edit or modify the investigation as well. So think of the investigation as more like, I'm going to build this case. This case includes these cameras, and then it's going to take that video and save it to the location specified by the settings in the management client. We'll look at that too. Okay, we also have bookmarks. So if we have created bookmarks, we do have the ability to create bookmarks from mobile as well. Let me just grab a view of cameras, exterior front. We'll grab this guy and let's go to playback. So we can do this live or in playback. At any point on your timeline, in the bottom right corner is that little that little bookmark icon. You can tap that and it's going to give us the add a bookmark screen. We can give it a title. We can give it a description, modify the start time, the end time, and the bookmark time, and hit save. And now we have a bookmark there on our timeline that we can see to know that there was something of interest at that point. Those bookmarks become searchable on the smart client. They also, now we can do a view a list. So we can go back to navigation, more bookmarks, and we should have a list of now bookmarks. So here's that one that we created. Actually, that was on the back door. Let's go back. My bookmarks. So here's the one that we made, test. Okay, we can see the live video. We can see the playback video surrounding that time. We can do all bookmarks, and now we can see all the bookmarks that are created. You can have any number of rules in Milestone create bookmarks. So for example, anytime I have a person out in the trash receptacle area, we're creating a bookmark on that. Anytime one of the intercom buttons is pressed, we're creating a bookmark on that. Here was the back warehouse door just earlier of the FedEx guy dropping off a package. He comes up, hits the doorbell, and that creates the bookmark for us. So it makes finding events, of interest a little bit easier to have those that you can go through and pick what you want. We also have actions. So we looked at this a little bit. Here's that big long list of actions. We can do any number of things. I have an event tied to my roll-up door. So from my mobile, I can use an open close warehouse door button or a temp unlock front door. If you've got different audio messages you want to play, you can tie those to events. And then access control. So access control is going to show us the list of doors as well as a list of events. So I can say, here's an event. Let's go to the front door, door forced open. Let's grab, these are also filterable. So you can kind of filter and say, only show me these type events. We're going to grab a access granted on the vestibule door. So here we have one of our employees, Keith. He came in, he scanned his badge on the door. We have 3 cameras associated with that door. We can see all 3 of them right there. I can click any one of them, hit play, and we can now have the playback video of that. If I go back to the door event, we have the information about the person, first name, last name. This is coming out of the access control and so on. If I go to view door, it's going to take me to that door, show me now the live feed from those. And I have commands where I can open the door manually or remotely. Let me pick a door that'll be a little bit easier to see. So we'll go to doors and we'll do warehouse roll-up door. And so here we have the inside view of the door. Here's the intercom on the outside. We'll leave it here on the inside and I can tap open and that door is now opening. So the access control features in here are only available to you if you have your access control system integrated with your Milestone system, which is something we love to do. We've covered kind of before in other sessions what you get from the smart client perspective with that. So if you want to learn more about that, check back on one of those other videos, or we can do a custom demo for you as well. Okay. Let's look at the, so one of the new features was noted as a show notification badge on the alarms tab. So what I'm going to do is we'll just pull up any collection of cameras and I'm going to manually trigger an alarm. So I have an alarm that I can manually trigger. And this is a defined milestone alarm. So it's this event happens, we're going to create an alarm. That's going to put it on the alarm manager tab here. So, and what we're looking at is how these alarms for the Alarm Manager tab show up in Milestone on the mobile clients. So I'm going to trigger that right now. There it is. And watch both of the phone and the iOS. So it popped up as just a normal notification on the Android device. We can see it there at the top. We see the list of events from the different triggers that we've had. On iOS, it popped up pretty quick. It does show up as a notification on the unlock screen. And so we can go there and leverage that to get us straight to that. Okay. We can also, let me trigger it again. So watch carefully across the top. Let's just go to, and we can do it on the alarms tab or any other tab. So we'll just stay here on the alarms tab. You know, here's a Stone employee at the front door. I'm going to trigger it again, and we'll see the banner pop up, external event on manual alarm test. That pops up here across the top. And that's that new feature for Milestone Mobile on iOS. In Android, that was never an issue because we always get just the normal notification pop-ups, but I guess there's some limitations in if the app is open, then Apple doesn't allow us to get new notifications, or I don't exactly know what the limits are there. Just that's what's been explained as to why that's an issue. So now the mobile app is actually creating that banner notification across the top. Okay. With alarms, just like, for example, we'll pull up the smart client here and go to Alarm Manager. So here's those two tests. They're just a generic event. They're not tied to anything. I did tie them to a camera and show the map. Here was a facial recognition alert from a Stone employee at an entrance. And there it is. I think my time sync between these two systems is a little bit off at the moment. I noticed that earlier as well. 9:59:12, and the event came in at 9:58. Actually, that's not too bad. The facial rec takes a few seconds to generate the alert and actually run the processing. So it does make sense that we would see that maybe a few seconds after the video timestamp. But there's our match saying that, yes, that is Keith. If I double click that, open it up, we have the details saying confidence for Keith, 48.96% confident. We've got other events as well. So there's another facial match, as well as people standing up against the screen in the golf simulator creates alerts. All sorts of different things can do milestone alarms. And we've looked at that before as well, so I don't want to spend too much time on there. But mainly, what we wanted to look at is, okay, how do we get those alerts in the mobile? On Android, they pop up just as any typical notification, as well as in the alarm list. Let's go back and back. And then alarms, same thing. So we've got our alarm list. And then there's that. Okay, let's look at video push. So first with video push, I'm going to show you what video push does. And then we'll look at how it is set up. So for video push, what we need is a smart client. Resize this a little bit. So I have a view here with 3 different video pushes on it. We're going to use the one with my name, and we're going to use the Android device. So we'll see side by side how this is happening both on my phone in real time, as well as in the smart client. And we'll look at it on the iOS as well. On Android, it's this little blue button with a camera and an arrow down in the bottom right corner. On iOS, it's its own icon down here on the navigation bar that says video push. So let's bring up our smart client. And I'm going to start the video push. Now we have camera. So I'm on the screen, and I can even flip the camera around. Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is. And so now I can hit start. That's going to trigger it to start streaming into my milestone. So several things happened all at once. We got the video that now shows up in Milestone. Audio can be carried into this as well. If I unmute the microphone, then the audio is now part of that stream. Okay. The GPS locations of my phone is being embedded into the video metadata. There's not currently yet a way to display this, though, inside of Milestone. That is coming soon. Hopefully we can see that really soon. I know there's basically a major refresh to Smart Maps coming that we'll see that. We can also create bookmarks while doing this. Of course, my keyboard doesn't want to put, there it goes. Test bookmark. I can add. So you can leverage the front side or the back side cameras on your device. But I believe you have to stop the stream, flip it around, and then restart the stream. Okay. And that's what we get coming into Milestone. So we had a Milestone alarm generate off of that as well. We can now, anytime somebody starts a video push session, we can use that as a trigger to say, hey, somebody started a video push. Maybe this is something that you want to pay extra attention to. You can even start watching it live and now follow along with what's going on, respond accordingly, whatever is needed. It's also just a great way to get evidence into your Milestone. So let's say there was a fender bender in the parking lot and you have a security officer responding to take a report. They get out there. Maybe instead of just taking photos with their phone, we can use that to push into Milestone. So for example, I can do video push. I respond out on scene. There's my RC cars down there. They crashed, and we can video the scene. I get the notification, and I can finish my documentation and hit stop. Okay. Same functionality in iOS. Let me rearrange these. So in iOS, we have that same video push button. We can click it. We're going to see the camera. We can flip the camera around if we want. We can include audio. We can not include audio. We can hit start. Once we hit start, it does tell us this nice little hey, it's doing 30 frames per second. There's our Milestone alarm push banner that popped up. We have the live video here in the mobile client. The amount of delay is going to vary depending on the connection speed between the device and the network. So same functionality between those two devices. And now inside of our Milestone, go back to mobile push, take that camera back full screen, go to playback. Now I have all of that as recorded video that we can go and review at will, and so on. Okay. So it's a really handy feature to have. Okay, but how does it work? What's required? It does require using the Milestone XProtect mobile app. It does require having the mobile service installed and running somewhere. So on my systems, here's my recording server. It's running on my recording server, and it's this icon right here, XProtect mobile server. So it's its own service that runs on the server. And then if we look at the setup of it, so we'll go to mobile servers. You can even have more than one, by the way. You can have multiple mobile servers set up. I've done this in the past where I had a mobile server that was set up for the PD security group. I had another mobile server that was set up for just for general use across the organization. And then I had one set up, I had an old desktop that actually was running just on my desktop. It was running on my desktop, and it was just one that I would use for myself. But you can add multiple. There's several options here. And I don't want to go necessarily through everything, but it's generally pretty self-explanatory. Do we want the web client? Okay, the web client, which we'll look at as well. The web client is part of the mobile service. So when you say, I want the web, but I don't want mobile phones, and we say, okay, well, we have to set up a mobile server, don't get confused in that, because you need the mobile server, and that does both. Now we can turn off the web client, or you can not allow the mobile usage. and so on. We have enabled the all cameras view. That was this. So cameras, this all cameras, that's the all cameras view because it's just all the cameras and we can scroll through and see whatever. So we can take that away. We can enable bookmarks or disable bookmarks. We can enable the actions, which is outputs and events. We can enable or disable incoming audio. We can enable or disable push to talk. So all of these are things that are features inside the software. For example, if I grab, let's go back and do intercoms. We'll grab an intercom. I have a speaker icon up in the top right that is going to allow me to listen to whatever that device is picking up. And I have a microphone button in the bottom that I can press and hold. And now pressing that button, I can talk out to the speaker on that device. So we can get bidirectional audio that way. Technically, it would be half duplex, not full duplex audio, but it does come in handy. Okay. We have deny the built-in administrator's role access to the mobile server. So if you are the administrator in your management, in your Milestone system, you could take away your ability to access the mobile server, or if you manage it, but somebody else is in the, anyway, that's not often checked, but it is an option. Where do we keep the logs? How long do we keep the logs for? Are we going to import or export the configuration so that we can transfer it over to a new device? We could do that. Connectivity is going to tell us, all right, we're going to time out after 30 seconds of a dropped connection. The enable UPnP discoverability and enable automatic port mapping, those used to come enabled by default. Over the years, UPnP has become more of a security vulnerability, and so that is now shifted to actually be disabled by default. Automatic port mapping would be like an auto NAT, and most firewalls don't support that either. And so generally you're going to see both of those turned off. Enable Smart Connect, though, is a really nice, handy feature. And what Smart Connect is going to do is it's going to let you leverage these features down at the bottom to get people the connection details in order to join and connect with their mobile. So what this does, for example, so I can put in an email address. And I can hit send. Okay, and invitation sent successfully. And now in my email, so let me open this email and I will drag it over. So we get an email that says, here's a link to download the app. And here's the link that's going to add your specific connection details for your mobile server. So a user would open this on their phone. They would click the link. They would first download the app, and then they would click this Add Server to XProtect Mobile button, and it's going to pull in those connection details. Those connection details are what's listed here for the server address, and we can specify multiple addresses or customize how those show, and whether you're going to get access or not. Now, this by itself is not going to get you access. This just tells you what the endpoint, where the endpoint is listening. And so to get access, you still have to have a valid username and password. And if this is not opened up on my firewall, if I'm instead leveraging a VPN, then again, this still isn't going to get access to anything. Server status is going to show us who is logged in, how many video streams are being viewed by those devices right now. If I go grab a selection of cameras, we'll see that update over time. So we've got, this one's my Android phone. It's viewing 3. This is my iPad. It hasn't updated yet. It's currently viewing 8. So once that updates, we'll see that change. It tells us the bandwidth being used by that as well. Performance, we can change the scalability. We're not going to go into this. Generally, it's best just to leave the enable direct streaming and enable adaptive streaming set. These other transcoded features are a little more legacy. There are certain new situations where they do come into play and do become handy, but becoming less and less so now that smartphones are as powerful as they are. Investigations. So here's that investigations folder we talked about. This is where it's going to put the investigations that are created. So that video comes out of my Milestone system. And in this case, it's going to be saved to C program data, Milestone XProtect, mobile server exports. This can be changed. So if this isn't where you want it, it can be modified or put somewhere else. I believe that is done in the on the service itself. Let's double check. So if I go right click, change investigations folder, I can put that to any other location that I want. We can limit the size. We can make investigations viewable by others. We can set a retention time. So after 30 days, the data that we pulled out is going to disappear. We can specify the export formats, XProtect format, AVI, MKV, whatever you want to set those to. And then it's going to show us a list of investigations that were created so that we can either make sure people are using the system appropriately, turn it off, modify it, adjust it, or whatever we need to do. I haven't seen too many people really use investigations. Generally, when you're on a mobile device, it's just easiest to, hey, let's look at the video, let's look at the playback, view live, view playback. We're going to use some of the IOs, the access control integrations, or whatever other features. And then if I need to actually go and view video and export it, maybe I create a bookmark, but then I'm going to move back to my smart client and I'm going to view, the video in better detail there, in a better UI, better experience overall, and then I can do my exports normally from there. We'll skip over the video push for just a moment. Notifications. If I want to get the notifications to my devices, we have to enable this. And that automatically also maintains a device registration so we can see whose devices are set up to get notifications. And we can turn that off for certain devices if we want to kind of force users to say, hey, no, you guys don't get notifications, but we want that enabled for a certain group of people. Hey everyone, it's me, Adam from the future. When we went through this next part during the live session, I had typoed a password, and we hit a couple snags trying to add a new mobile push channel. So I figured out the password issue and wanted to show you the whole process without any of the issues that we ran into. Before we dive in though, let's talk about the licensing part of the mobile push. Every unique user you set up for mobile push will use one XProtect device license. So in this scenario here, I currently have 3 device licenses occupied by mobile push, and we are about to add a 4th. So now, how do we set it up? Well, generally the process is, first, you have to create a push channel on the mobile server. Then you have to create a hardware device on the recording server. Then we have to associate the push channel that we made to the hardware that we added. So on the mobile server module, on the video push tab, we have 4 buttons across the bottom: add, edit, remove, and change password. The password used here is how the recording server will authenticate with the hardware device or push channel created by the mobile server. There is a default password built into the system, and you can use that or you can change it. The default password is simply Milestone with a capital M. Note though that the password used here is used for all mobile push channels, both that exists now or that we will create in the future. So if you do change it, make a note of what it is so you don't run into problems of a forgotten or messed up password. This credential set though isn't leveraged by the user since they'll connect to the mobile service using their username and password. This is just used between the mobile server and the recording server. So let's go ahead and add a new push channel. We'll start by clicking add. And it's going to pre-fill a port number here. Now, one thing I've learned in the past when setting this up is that the default starting port of 40001 doesn't seem to work on most systems. I'm not sure if this doesn't work because some other application is already using that port or if there's some other issue. So what I've done is change the port I start with to 40101. Then every new channel you add after that will auto increment off of that port number. So this being our 4th channel, we are now at 40104. The MAC address is randomly generated. You can change it to something if you want, or it's just probably easiest to leave it the default of whatever it randomly generates. The username that it's asking for here is the username for the actual end user, the person who is going to use the mobile app and connect and then push video to our system. So in this instance, I'm going to use a basic user that we've already created, and I'm going to just paste that name there. And then camera name, it's by default going to say camera is not identified. That will change after the last and final step. So we'll click OK. And now we need to click Save to save those changes. From here, we're going to go to the recording server, and we're going to add that hardware device. So I can right click, add hardware. For this, we're going to choose manual, click next. For the credentials, we want to leave the username blank, and the password will be either the default Milestone with a capital M, or it will be whatever custom password that you applied on that change password option. I already have that pre-filled here, so I'll click next again. From here, we want to clear the selection of all the different devices. We're going to scroll down on the list, find the Milestone section, expand that out, and we're going to just manually select and only select the video push driver. Click next. Now the IP address here that it's asking for, or host name, you can use either one, is going to be the address of our mobile server. Whatever that is running on, that's what we're going to use. So in this case, mine is 10.3.50.11, and the port is the port that we created and associated to that push channel that we made earlier. So in this instance, it's 40104. And HTTPS, I'm going to leave disabled. And I haven't tested this, but I believe if you have HTTPS set up for your mobile server already, you can check that box. I may be mistaken on that though. For this instance, we're going to leave that unchecked. For our hardware model, we're going to do video push driver. And now I'm going to click next. And here we have the success. Click next again, success again. And now's the part where we get to see our devices and rename them. So we have the top level hardware, and we want that enabled. We have the camera port 1. Of course, we want that enabled. The microphone port 1, if you want to record the audio, if that is turned on for the stream. If we want that included and saved, then we want to enable the microphone device. And the same thing with the metadata. If we want to retain and keep that metadata in the stream, we want to pull that in as well. Now, the location data for where this phone is that is doing the video push stream is included in that metadata port. However, there's not a way in Milestone yet to view that natively within the smart maps. Hopefully, we'll see that included in the next refresh of those, which I know is in the works. Now, don't forget to rename the device. So in my case here, I'm just going to do video push and the name of the person that I associated that to. And then I'll take off the camera 1 part. And I just like to trim off the 1. No need to have a 1 if it's the only one. So we'll just trim those. Everything's enabled. We've renamed it. Click next. And for simplicity, I'm just going to drop these into the all cameras, all microphones, all metadata groups. You can change those up to however you need. And I'm going to click finish. And now once this refreshes our management client, we'll see that new device added here. Scroll down to the bottom. Here it is, Video Push Christian. And we can see and review the information there. If I expand that out, here we have the video push. Here's the camera. If we go to the settings tab, you'll notice there's not really much here in the way of settings. We have a codec selection where we just have JPEG is our only option. Frames per second, we can specify a frames per second value. The default is 25. This can scale up or down though, depending on the quality of the connection between our phone device and the mobile server. Quality, again, is a target quality. We want to aim for that 90% by default. You can scale this up or down depending on your needs. And resolution, your only option in that list is auto. And from there, we can move on to the next one. Stream, there's only going to be one video stream, so we can set that as needed for both live and playback and recording. Recording, of course, we want to record on related devices. You can select the storage if you wanted to specify a different storage target for that. Now, here's one that I've kind of played with a little bit. Video push, if the device is not actively streaming, video push is always going to include kind of a blank default empty stream of just this icon here. And so this isn't a static image. It technically is a video stream, but it's not the same as the no videos, if the device is offline, that we are accustomed to. So we do want to set up a motion threshold. And the reason we want to do this is because when we look at, hey, the stream started, we want to make sure that we record. I discovered that there's not an event that says to Milestone that a video push stream has started. So what we need to do is we need to process that stream for motion in order to tell Milestone to start recording that. So in this case, I'm just going to take this all the way down to 0, and I'm going to set it to 20. If I take it all the way down to 0, we can start recording when there is motion, but it doesn't let go at the end of that, and so it will continue to record continuously. So if we just set it above 0, which in this case, the easiest way to do that is set it to 20, then at that 20 level, we'll still get really sensitive detection on the motion. We can use that to trigger the recordings. And once the motion has stopped, the recording will stop as well. Moving on down the list here, you'll notice that there is no events tab like we would see typically on a camera. And on that events tab, what I would expect to see is those events like, hey, the stream has started. This is, an event. Somebody's created a bookmark on this device or whatever. None of that exists. And so we have to leverage that motion started in order to trigger any events or recording that we want. And I'll show you how we can look and explore what those events are. And you can actually use this as a troubleshooting tool in general to see what events are hitting your system, so you know what you could even use as a trigger for different things. Now, before we move on to the next section, we actually need to finish the process of adding the mobile push channel. So we have we created the channel. So we created the channel. We created the recording server hardware. Now we need to associate the two together. So in order to do that, we're going to go back to the mobile server, back to our video push tab. And now where it says camera not identified, we're going to hit find cameras. And now this is searching the recording server for any device that has a matching MAC address. And there we go. So we have the camera name is Video Push Christian, and it should now be functional. Save changes. So let's take a look at how we can troubleshoot or test the events coming into our Milestone event server. To do that, we're going to leverage a PowerShell module called Milestone PS Tools. This is published by Milestone and available for download. If you haven't played with this very much, it is quite a powerful tool that has a lot of options and features to it that will enhance your Milestone experience, particularly if you're the one managing your Milestone. It does leverage the SDKs and the API in order to connect to Milestone through the command line interface here. And from there, we can do a number of different events. So the first thing we want to do is connect to our Milestone system. It's going to pop up with a login box, pretty similar to what we would typically get logging into the Smart Client or the Management Client. Then we hit connect. Now it shows us the Milestone system that we are connected to, shows us the name, the version, the name of the server, the time zone. Our next command that we can leverage is called trace events. And this trace events, if I run this as it is now, is going to show us all the events that come and hit the event server. Depending on how large or how busy your system is, there could be quite a lot of this. So let me stop that with the Control-C. So if we want to look for a specific device, we can use some PowerShell command line syntax to give us something like this. We're going to trace events, and we're going to pipe or pass the results of that into a filter where we're going to say where object, and what we're looking for is the source name is equal to, and we're going to specifically look for video push -Adam. You'll notice here this source name line, that's what we're trying to match against. And so we only want to see the events from the source that we're looking for. So I can go ahead and run that, and it's going to sit here and not find any. Now from my video push, from my Milestone mobile phone, I can hit start, and you'll see now 2 events pop up. The first event that we get is simply a motion detected. And now I have a rule that says when motion is detected on this mobile push device, we are going to start recording. If I hit the stop button, we will see the stop commands on that side. There they are. Motion stopped, recording stopped. So if ever needed, this is one way to kind of test and see what events are coming in. In this instance, we were just using it to see any events tied to this video push Atom device. So Control C to stop that. And there we go. And now with that, we'll jump back to the rest of the session as was recorded before. And up next, we're going to talk about the XProtect web client. All right, I want to now look at the web client because that's the other half of what we get when we turn on the mobile service. So come here, and the way you access this is going to be, you're going to go to the IP address or host name of your mobile server, and then it's going to be on port, whatever port we programmed in that connection tab details. So mine is on just the default 8081. If it's set up HTTPS, then it's going to be by default 8082. And then the rest of it you don't need. It will fill that in once you go there. Okay, you can log in as either a Windows user or a basic user. I'm going to log in as a Windows user. You can put in your domain / your username. If there's only one domain, you can also just do your username. And now we hit login. And now we're there. So we're going to say next time on the tour because we don't want to look at that right now. And this is very similar to basically the look and feel of a smart client. The changes to make this look and feel like a smart client are actually relatively new as well. That happened kind of towards the end of 2023 and then more in 2024. But we have our views. So here's the public, the demo views. We have our locations. We're already looking at the lobby, which is what we've looked at before. I can scroll and get the rest of the cameras. Again, it's only going to stream the cameras that are appearing on the page. And I can change my, so this is a little different. My grid view button here does not behave the same way in web as it does the mobile clients. In the mobile clients, this changed us from a 2x2, basically from 2 wide to 3 wide, so we can see more or fewer cameras. Doing it here, it's just going to take me full screen. So it's a grid view full screen button, even though the icon looks near identical. But we have our tabs across the top: views, investigations, actions, alarms, and bookmarks. We have the views section across on the left-hand side. Below that, we have our typical camera navigation tree, which we have in the smart client. So if we go back here and I go to cameras, we have the all cameras, locations, and so on. And so we have that same tree here. All cameras, locations, groups, whatever. We can grab the different layouts, the different views. We get them here. We have live and playback selections down across the bottom. So I can do playback. I can hide the timeline, or I can show the timeline. We can click and drag. Now, how responsive, again, this is going to be is going to depend on your network connection, the number of cameras that are being displayed, and then the resources available to your mobile server. I can play. I can take any of these. I can select one of the cameras and go full screen on it. I can go back to the view. So we have very similar functionality to what we get in a smart client, but it's still of the mobile variety. So I don't have exports. Instead, I have exports. I have investigations, but I do still have actions and alarms and bookmarks. Now, one thing you don't see here, there is no access control tab like we would have on the mobile devices or on the smart client. There's also no LPR tab. So certain elements that you would see in the smart client, we're not going to get here yet. So, but we do have the alarms, and here's the running list alarms. So here's the video push is live. We can acknowledge the alarms the same way we would on any other client. We can get the live video tied to that. So, but yeah, any device in the tree that we select. So if I, expand one out, it's going to pull up just that one camera. This isn't a click and drag option like what we would have in the smart client. So it's just going to be one specific camera at a time, or we can select our pre-built views. You can't edit the views. You can't, rearrange the cameras. None of that is functionality in the mobile client, or the web client for that as well. Okay, so that's the mobile client, the web client, video push, a review of new features. Are there any questions that you would like answered? If so, drop them in the chat. Let me check really quick the Q&A, see if anybody dropped anything in Q&A. Nothing there either. So if there's anything in the chat, you can start typing. You can raise your hand if you want us to wait a minute while you finish typing. If there's anything that you would like to see in a future video as well, we would love feedback on that, and we'll add it to our list of topics that we roll through. If time permitted, I was going to show XProtect Remote Manager. I'm not prepared to dive into it deep, but I can give you a quick preview of it. So XProtect Remote Manager is a feature that started in Milestone in 2024, R1 or R2. I think it was R2. It does require care to be active, so it does require a current Milestone care. And what this does, it's the very beginning of shifting functionality from the management client into a cloud-based management client. There's still a lot that's not there, and the management client's not going away, at least not for a long time. But this is the beginnings of adding in some features. So we can see if we have multiple sites added, we can see the status of all of those sites. Currently they're saying, one site at attention. I can say show me the reasons why, and it's going to probably say something like a couple cameras offline. Yeah, communication error for some cameras showing as offline. I can go into that site, and from this site we can now see. We'll jump in one more. So 105 out of 107 devices are online. We've got a couple disabled. Let's see. Sorry, 81 healthy. We've got 2 disabled, 1 unknown, 6 offline, 14 in critical condition. That critical could be something like our frames rate is lower than we're expecting, or whatever it might be, 3 in attention. We can click on those and it's going to tell us what those are. Okay, well, yeah, video push is only going to show us, streams when they're actually active. And so those would be critical, different things. It's going to tell us the status of the hosts of the services. One service requires attention. I said that backwards. It's the recording server. And it's probably going to say something like video being, not meeting retention time or something along those lines. Or it could just even be some of the communication errors there. Device components. We've got the breakout there of the components. We can view all of the devices. There is even some ability to modify the devices here as well. Like if I click one, we're going to dig into that device. I have a video stream for it. We can see the stream settings for it. Some of those settings can be fixed or can be modified or changed. So again, very like management client-esque, but not fully management client yet. We can see what device groups this device components. So we have the device, we've got the camera, the metadata. We can shortcut to those to update things, disabled devices. So it's getting pretty well done. One way that this can be leveraged is to give your integrator, hopefully Stone Security, remote access to your site to remotely manage, monitor, maintain, program, whatever is needed. You call us up, say, hey, this camera's not working. We want to change the frame rate on it or something along those lines. Then we can use the XProtect Remote Manager tool to jump in and make some of those modifications. Now, we only get access if you grant it specifically to us. This does not create a connection to the cloud and gives access to anybody and everybody or people that you don't specify. You have to generate a unique key. That key gets sent, that key gets tied to a user or to a group, and then permissions are granted from there as well. We can see the different hosts. So here's my management server. Here's my recording server. Both show currently healthy. Services, management server service, recording service, mobile service, event service, log service. I really wish they would change these from server to service, because server in context is always the physical appliance or the virtual machine. And that can be kind of confusing when we're talking about the management server. Well, is it the server or is it the service we're talking about? Anyway, semantics, I suppose, in some instances. System insights. Okay, we can get information about uptime, CPU usage, available memory, retention time, any events happening on the system, things along those lines. So this is getting there. It's getting more and more versatile. We're getting better functionality there. We can group by recording server, model name, state. We can search. We can add devices. Yes, you can add a new camera to your Milestone through here. So we would specify the driver. We would put in the IP address, username, password, follow through the prompts. You can also manage the device component groups. So we'll dive into this probably in its own video and really dig into some of the features and we'll practice adding a camera through that way so we can really see what all is here. A couple questions in the chat. Like to see a door held open alarm in Linux on guard with video integration from Milestone. That is a great thing to show. We've shown that in previous videos, and we will definitely cover it again in the future. But check out the Security and Sandwiches playlist on YouTube and look for any of the Milestone videos and read the description. One of them will say integration with OnGuard, and you can see that door forced event there, or the door held event there. What are recommended device settings for compression in management? This is a great question. Can you elaborate on device settings? Okay, we'll kind of cover this a little quickly. And while I'm pulling it up, does Milestone integrate well with the Avigilon cameras? The answer is yes, they do. Milestone has a list on their website of supported devices. You can always check there what is supported, what features may or may not be supported on those cameras, and so on, as well as firmware versions that have been tested to work with Milestone. So check that out. I'll see if I can get that link for that here in a moment. Let's see. Okay, so we'll pick a camera. So you're talking about compression and other camera settings. So on the recording server, we go to the hardware device, and then we see the individual devices there. So here's the camera device and the metadata device. So on the camera device, we have different settings. These settings will vary depending on camera model and manufacturer as well. Hanwha's settings are different from Axis's settings, are different from Bosch's settings, are different from Avigilon's settings. Our general rule of thumb, unless there's something kind of pushing us in one direction or another, we're generally going to recommend 15 frames per second, 30% compression, full resolution of what the camera supports. If it's an Axis device, we're going to recommend Zipstream. You can set Zipstream pretty confidently wherever you want. It's going to default to low. If you want to save more more storage space, reduce the bandwidth of the camera, you can set that to medium, high, or higher. Zipstream compression is only going to compress the parts of the images where there's not very much happening in it, and so the motion in the high motion or the high change areas of a scene are not going to be impacted by the Zipstream. Only the areas of a scene that there's not much happening in. Zipstream frames per second mode and GOP mode, we recommend leaving both of those as fixed. If you set those to dynamic, yes, you can reduce your bandwidth and your storage requirements, but if you're leveraging the Milestone side motion detection, you're going to get some really unreliable and unpredictable results. But yeah, so generally that's where we're at. We're going to be at 30% compression, 15 frames per second, Zipstream low, full resolution. Streaming mode, generally you're best with the RTP, RTSP, TCP option. They did in the latest device pack driver they did add SRTP, which is secure RTP protocols. So you have those now as well. That's actually brand new in the 13.7a device pack. So, and then compression, what compression is basically doing is if compression is 0%, that's the native video coming from the camera, pixel by pixel. Every little bit that's changing, we're seeing that detail. As we compress that, we start to lose detail. Things start to get a little bit grainier. And let me say, like, maybe this isn't the best camera to do this on. If I do 100% compression, let's see if we see that change here in the image. We may not see much of a change just because there's not a lot happening in this scene. But it's going to make it look more pixelated, more blocky, and just not as clean, not as detailed, not as pretty. So, but generally 30% is the sweet spot. You can go up to 50%, usually above 50%. We don't recommend because we're going to start to see artifacting and a larger degradation in the video. Okay, hopefully that answered that question well enough. We can dig into each of those settings more too as we, in a future session, look at specific cameras and adding them to Milestone, and we'll walk through those settings as well. Okay, camera licensing structure, one-time purchase, bulk discount, bulk purchase discount. Yes and yes and yes. It's a great question. So Milestone has different tiers of the product. There's XProtect Expert, there's XProtect Professional Plus, there's Corporate, Express. There's a free version, Essentials, which actually I just caught wind that they're discontinuing the free Essentials version. That was only good for up to 8 cameras anyway, so not critical. But there is a base license for the version for the, are you on Corporate? So there's a Corporate base license. If you're on Expert, there's an Expert base license. The base license is one time. Then there are device licenses. So every device that you add to Milestone is going to take a device license. Think of it this way, one device license per MAC address. So if I have a single sensor camera, like what we have here, this is a Q6225 PTZ, one MAC address, one network port, one Milestone device license. And only one camera, one sensor. If I go to a P37, so here's a P3737, this is 4 camera sensors. It is still, though, one MAC address, one NIC, one network port, one IP address, one device license, okay? Now, there are some access devices that can be paired together, like the well, you won't be able to see, you can kind of see it in the bottom of this. So the camera here, just at the top edge of this scene, this is a Q6100 with a Q6315 PTZ. So that's 2 devices. Each of these devices has its own MAC address. It's still only one network port, and they share the PoE budget, but it's 2 devices, 2 MAC addresses, so therefore it is 2 device licenses inside of Milestone. The device licenses are one time. There is a care component. Care is their like software renewal, software update plan. Care is included on licensing by default, and we do recommend that you do it. It is a much smaller portion, and it renews annually. So just like as a ratio, as an example, if a device license on Corporate is $300, give or take, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. I don't do quoting myself, but we'll just use nice round numbers. So if a device license is $300, the care portion is going to be maybe like $40 or $50 or $60. So it's a much smaller part. And so it's going to be a device license and a base license one time. And then annually, you're going to do a care for every, the numbers match up. So if you have 100 device licenses, you're going to have 100 for care. And you can get pricing that way. But yeah, Patrick just dropped into the chat an email address so you can reach out to our estimating team. You can also, if you have a sales resource at Stone that you work with, you can talk to them. They can get you quotes and licensing and costs and everything else as well. If you're new to Stone, we would love to have you talk with one of our sales reps anyway, because they're going to be able to help you design your system, help answer some of these other questions, figure out which version of Milestone is going to be the best one for you, and so on. We're wrapping up on time, but I want to hit up these. There's at least one or two more questions here. Is the onboard video analytics on approved Avigilon cameras usable on the Milestone platform? Great question. We would have to check specifically on the device site. So if we go to milestonesys.com, what we do is we go to support and supported devices. Okay, now we need to pick, so are we on the XProtect platform, the Arcules? So we're on the XProtect platform. All right, so now we can come show advanced filters, manufacturers, and we can come down and say Avigilon. And we want to look at cameras. This can take a couple seconds to update. Okay, so cameras. And here is the list of devices. Now, I don't know the Avigilon part numbers to know which of these are current models versus old models. There are currently 366 Avigilon devices on the supported list. It tells you how many licenses it takes, what type of device it is. And if you click one of them, it'll take you in and say, okay, we're using the ONVIF conformant device driver. For firmware version on the camera, it's supported since device pack 10.3. Tells you the number of audio channels, the audio codecs, the number of video channels, the video codecs, and the events that are supported by that device. Okay. And so you can look specifically and see what is available and what functions there. Okay, like yes, we have PTZ support, and we have both absolute and relative PTZ support. The camera's expected to be 1 megapixel resolution. PTZ presets, so we are able to leverage PTZ presets on the device. Yes, we have support for PTZ functionality and joysticks. So, in Milestone the camera can support 3 concurrent streams, and each of those can be a H.264 stream. So this is what's going to give us that determination of what does the camera support. Okay. When should hardware acceleration be used on the motion tab? So what that question is referring to is on the motion tab, there is a selection here for hardware acceleration. And your options are automatic and off. You can only leverage hardware acceleration if the recording server running these cameras has NVIDIA GPUs in it. So even though it says automatic, it's not leveraging hardware acceleration for the motion detection, because this server does not, my server does not have GPUs running on that. And last question, does the platform contain a dewarping tool for Avigilon 360-degree cameras? There are 2 answers to that. There may be a plugin which would give improved dewarping to the Avigilon 360 cameras, but there is also, Milestone has capabilities for, let me grab this guy. So this is an Axis panoramic camera, 360 camera. There is an Axis plugin I can leverage to dewarp, but there is also, Milestone does have a generic dewarping capability. So we would go to fisheye, we would enable fisheye lens support, and we would say generic dewarping, and then we're going to put in the field of view in degrees. So this camera is 183 degrees, and Milestone will use that information to dewarp the image. Now, any manufacturer provided plugin for dewarping is going to be better than Milestone's, because this is very generic, and the one that the manufacturer creates is going to be very specifically mapped to the lens and the optics of that camera. So, okay. Well, we have hit the end of our time. I really appreciate everybody joining us today. We had a really good session, lots of good questions. We'll continue to look through this list and see if there's things that we can add for future rotations as well. But yeah, hopefully you found it insightful and informative, and we really appreciate your attendance. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next month on May 29th for our next session. And we'll get the topics posted for that pretty soon. We're still working on determining what those are. But thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.